Hello, climbers, and welcome to Season 4 of Climbing Mount CMMC.
Well, hello and welcome back, climbers, to another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC. My name is Bobby Guerra, and my co-host, Kaleigh Floyd. Thank you for joining us today, Kaleigh.
Hello.
We have a trivial matter to talk about, 48 CFR, which just dropped at the time of this recording last week. So, you know, like it's live now. It's happened.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you've been talking about the boogeyman, and now he has jumped out of the closet and goes, "Surprise! Here I am!" You know, and so it's here.
Right.
Now, full disclosure, I was working on an audit all last week, and have just been totally focused on that aspect. And so because of that, I haven't even really had a chance to look through it, but Kaleigh has dug into it. But keep in mind, you know, a little asterisk here, we reserve the right to be wrong. These are our initial thoughts and what we've read through. I've looked through it some now just today is in preparation for this. There's a lot of very interesting things. There, I would say there's almost a weather report mentality for the DoD's approach as far as on how this phased rollout can be. So it's kind of like, you know, there's a 60 or 80% chance of rain, but either way, the way that you do the percentages, it could either rain or not, and you're still right. So it really doesn't matter. So we're going to talk about that today. So Kaleigh,
Yes.
I think really what I'd like to first kind of dive into is what your first thoughts were when you just kind of like heard about the news. And then, because I was in the audit, and the assessor was like, "Hey, did you guys hear about?" And I was like, "Oh crap, that's cool, but we're going to focus on this right now."
Yeah, well, I was pretty surprised because I thought, you know, we had a bet going. I said this on LinkedIn too. We had a bet going on if I would give birth to a child before or after, you know, the effective date of this rule. And
So full disclosure, Kaleigh is pregnant, in case you didn't know that. So.
Yes. And so, you know, they were racing me to the clock there. I was like, it's a hit or miss. We'll see. Like, who knows? But they actually beat.
You're talking about go live or when it was going to be published?
The effective date. The effective date.
Oh, okay. So that's
That's pretty close. It's right there.
November 10th, right? I think.
So November 10th is when it goes live. They actually made their first ever deadline. They did it. They made it. But yeah, my initial thoughts with this, I think coming from the perspective of I talk with a lot of contractors throughout the week and just hear their stories and their perspectives and where they're at on their journey. Many people are at many different parts of the journey, but I would say a lot of them are at the beginning. And a lot of them that I'm talking to are subcontractors. And after reading some of the updates to the final rule and just rereading the rule again of how it was proposed even, it really emphasizes the impact and the risk that primes are putting on themselves for like the subcontractors beneath them. And I think it definitely is very scary to think about for subcontractors specifically, in the sense of some of them are thinking that they can just follow the phased rollout. But after reading this, I felt this way before reading it, but after reading it, I can almost guarantee you that you should not just go based off of the phased rollout, especially if you are a subcontractor. But yeah, it's
tumultuous
definitely
waters to make assumptions.
Yeah.
Especially if the life and well-being of your organization's on the line.
Yeah,
right?
It's no joke. It's no joke, and they are doubling down.
One of the things that when we do quarterly business reviews with our clients, when we get into the disaster recovery planning section, one of the things we say to the clients is, look, no matter how terrible or just worst case scenario you could envision, you still have to talk about those types of situations. You still have to discuss those possibilities. And if you're like, well, they're not going to do this, they're not going to do this because that's just unimaginable, so we're just going to move forward with the assumption that's not going to be the case. But that's not really the reality. That's not smart. The DoD has created a lot of latitude for them to handle things in various different ways through this 32 CFR ruling, or the 48 that is. And so you could find yourself in that worst case scenario of the kids sitting on the bench not being able to participate in the game because of the fact that you weren't putting yourself in the right positions to be able to get your level 2 requirement, even though you felt like you shouldn't have to. You could be absolutely sad. You could be right. but you could still be on the bench.
Yeah.
So pay attention.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So, Kaleigh, let's go ahead and get into those different topics. But before we do, just for people that are tuning in that might have been living under a rock, can you just...
Let's do a background.
Let's just do a little background. Can you sort of summarize why 48 is so significant and how do we get here?
Yes, absolutely.
In just a few sentences.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, so for those of you who are not aware, 32 CFR was released before this last year and published in December of 2024. 32 CFR is, the mama bear that identifies what CMMC is, what the rollout is, how they're going to identify it, how it is going to play in the ecosystem. Here's all the big stuff. This is a requirement for, I keep wanting to say DOD, but now, I guess we should address the elephant in the room, which is, the Department of War. So the DOW now is what Dow.
That's, no one knows what, Dow, like.
Yeah. So
stocks now?
DOW. But anyway, so we discovered that this phased rollout was going to happen for CMMC. NIST 800-171 requirements are going to be put on contractors that are working in the war industrial base, the WIB. The worldwide WIB. Okay, anyway.
Really rolls off the tongue.
They are required if they are, using or they're safeguarding CUI, controlled and classified information, or federal contract information inside of their environments. They need to be able to safeguard it. Here comes NIST 800-171, and here comes 32 CFR last year to really identify, hey, this is how it's going to be rolled out. Right. We're requiring it now. We required it before, but you didn't do it before. Now we're requiring you to get certified, and identify.
And it also allowed for the certifications to start happening, right?
The certifications started happening January 2025.
32 CFR allows you to now, because that's how we got ours in January.
Yep. So CMMC level 2 certifications are allowed now to happen. CMMC level 1 is a self-assessment, so you can do that on your own. There are such thing as CMMC level 2 self-assessments, but quite few. so don't guarantee on that one.
It's a three-legged horse winning a race.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time.
48 CFR is what we were waiting to drop that identified truly the start of the phased rollout. Because in 32 CFR, it stated that this phased rollout would begin once the final CFR, 48 CFR, was dropped to release the last tidbit of news about how this whole thing was going to work, how DFARS clause 252.204-7021 was going to be in contracts, right?
I like how Ron Ross says weaponize.
Weaponize it, right?
Yeah,
he does say that a lot. Yeah.
I think 48 CFR really allows for the weaponization of the program into contracts, right? So that I think that is really a big part of it. Mm-hmm. 48's a much shorter than 32 of a rule. How many pages is? Well, it just depends on what the font is.
Yeah, it depends on. It depends on if you're doing the 3-column version or just the one. But yeah, this one is shorter. 2 CFR had the same thing of the comment section at the beginning that was very long, which made your pages a lot bigger if you added those in. And then 48 CFR also had it, but much less comments and much less responses because not as many people submitted for that one. So I think they were like, yeah, this is happening. I think they're like, I don't know what to say. We're just gonna let it happen. Yes, so November 10th is the effective date of 48 CFR, which means it is the effective date for the timeline and the rollout to begin.
So we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
But first on the list that you had was CMMC UID. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm newer to this world, I guess we came from the MSP side of things that just worked with a lot of commercial companies, not a bunch of DoD companies at first. And so, this lingo, I guess, the DoD unique identifiers, or the UIDs, was a thing before, but I was not fully aware of how they were incorporating it into CMMC. They've actually changed the name to specifically CMMC UIDs, so CMMC unique identifiers, which is just, it explains it as a 10 alpha numeric characters assigned to each contractor's CMMC assessment and reflected in spurs for each contractor information system.
And you get that after you get your third-party assessment.
After you get your assessment. I am quite curious. They were saying that you also have one for your self-assessments as well. So I guess once you enter in your, I'm not in the system exactly, so maybe somebody can speak very clearly to this who has been into the new system and how they've updated it. But I guess when you put in your SPUR score, you get that unique identifier, your CMMC unique identifier, no matter if it is a self-assessment or a CMMC level 2 certification, but it does identify what level it is, and everybody has to have one. So you have to have something there. 48 CFR at the very beginning of it does say the more major updates that they made to the rule since the proposed rule, and this is listed as one of them. So you can go and check in the second page, I think, is where this is listed in the rule. But they state that you have to have, as a prime contractor, when you are proposing or you're showing your proposal to a contract, you have to have not only your CMMC unique identifier, but every information system that is going to be on that contract potentially is CMMC unique identifier as well. Okay, so
boom, got you on that one, right?
And
that's significant. That's significant.
Yeah, and let's add to that. It's not just a UID. It has to be equal to the level that the contracting officer said that it needs to be at for that contract, right? So if it's a CMMC level 2 certification requirement, then every CMMC UID that you're proposing needs to have that level or higher, or you wouldn't be eligible to get the award. So that is, in my opinion, kicking the pants for the prime contractors of hey, just to make sure, do you see the risk here that you have where if you're working with subcontractors and they're not ready, even if you might be ready, if they're not ready, you're not even eligible. Doesn't matter.
The prevailing thought is, okay, I've got until I win the bid to present it. But from what you're seeing in there, it indicates that when you're submitting your proposal, you have to have that ID. And if you don't have it, then how would you be able to submit even for the proposal, which I think makes sense. But that puts people a little bit on their back heels if they're thinking, oh, I got some more time. And if I remember correctly, on those IDs, you can tell by the type of number whether it was a self-assessment or versus whether it's a third-party assessment. I can't remember what that was, but the way that the numbers are written, just when you look at the number, you can tell whether it was self or third party, which is significant because obviously if it was a third party, the level is the assurance that that is accurate goes up dramatically, right? Versus trust me, bro, versus they actually got audited.
And I didn't realize too how strict they were going to be with entering these things in with the proposal of the contract itself rather than kind of the POAM approach of I'll write that down for later and we'll approach that later with our subs. They're very much emphasizing in this that, you're not going to be approved unless everybody is there. And oh, by the way, if you add somebody later on, so let's say you do some shady stuff. I don't know. I'm not saying that people do this, but let's say that you put in the proposal for it and you didn't list everybody that might potentially be on it and you add a person later, you are required by 48 CFR to tell your officer that you are doing that there is an update to the list of CMMC UIDs. And they don't say what's going to happen to you. Not that I've seen. They didn't say specifically what's going to happen to you if you don't update that, but I would be scared. I wouldn't want to know.
Right.
If they figure out that there's another contractor that's working on this that was their CMMC UID was not listed in the proposal before, especially if they say here clearly, offerers will also be required to update the list when new CMMC UIDs are provided.
Well, and sometimes people incorrectly think, well, it's just the big mega primes that have to worry about tracking this. No, if you have a sub underneath you that you have flowed that down by yourself, like you're primary to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have to be responsible for tracking that and flowing that back up to the chain. So, I think that's sometimes what people forget a lot. Oh, so I just got to get my level 2 and then I'm good. You're like, sorta. If you're passing that data down to other people, you're on the hook to track that.
Yeah.
Because the people above you aren't omnipotent. They don't know who you're subbing out to. So you have to flow that communication appropriately. Yeah. And I think this emphasizes that fact in 48. I think it's going to be a very common mistake a lot of people are going to make. And it's just not getting quite the attention that it probably deserves. That the smaller organizations that are subs of subs, even if you're flowing that down to further, there's no stop to that. As the CUI moves down to the smaller and smaller people, those requirements continue, and the people that are flowing it down have those requirements to track.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, I'm going to clarify, too. I said this at the beginning, but we come from an MSP background, and the reason that I'm paying attention to this so much is not just for funsies. We're not just, interested randomly in this space, but now we have clients that are asking me, that are coming to me as subcontractors going, when do you think this is going to affect me? Like, how long do we really have until I might lose money on this? And, these are our clients that are asking us these things, and I want to be able to give them as accurate of an answer as I can, as their MSP. But with this requirement and how much they emphasize in this rule that the primes have a lot of risk with their subcontractors, I think that as a subcontractor, you should be immediately working on this and working towards it, because it doesn't matter when a contract necessarily says it. If your prime wants you to have it or they're kicking you out, they're kicking you out.
Well, I think people are like, well, I don't know if I have CUI or not. Let's just think about it for a second. Okay. Are they giving you information, the government, that they would be pretty upset if you published it? Right? They would be not happy.
You posted it on your Facebook page one day.
Yeah, here's where we're going to be building this on the base, and here's the plans. Isn't that cool? No. That's probably going to be controlled technical information. That's going to be a plan to a base to a building. It might be an architectural drawing. It might be different. When you start thinking it logically about that, the DoD may not be even marking it correctly. But if you can start looking at the type of data they're giving you and you just start filtering it from that perspective, you can start to kind of think to yourself, okay, this type of data they're giving me, I could see where this could get pulled into these types of requirements. So I need to be careful. Now, you probably already have the DFAR requirements and the SPRS requirements to, report 7019, 7012, 7008, those types of requirements already in there. But people are like, well, they threw it in everything, so I may not be required or not. Well, how about just apply a little logic to that? And I think you'll pretty quickly ascertain whether or not you're going to get pulled into this. And the chances are, if you're doing work in the DoD, you probably are.
Yeah.
So the chance of you being able to dodge this and actively participate in bids with the Department of Defense is going to be pretty low.
Right.
So just kind of warm up to that idea and start planning accordingly.
I completely agree. If you are working in that space and you are not selling COTS items, you need to take this seriously. I mean, and they clearly say that throughout this too. They're like excluding COTS. There's I'm looking at this page and there's multiple on this page of excluding COTS on this, but they don't clarify exclusions any more than that. So because I don't think they want to give themselves that boundary besides COTS. So COTS is there's their boundary. And I feel like if you're reading through this rule, you realize that that's really the only boundary that they want to give themselves. And then they want to give themselves the opportunity to weaponize this clause in any system that they think potentially will be handling, processing, storing, or transmitting FCI or CUI. Be prepared for this clause to be on it.
So let's talk about you have in here next on the list, prescribing the clause by program managers. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So, okay. So, Bobby, the first thing you asked me is like, was there more clarity to the phased rollout, right? Of what it was going to look like. And I felt like it was really interesting the way Do you want to explain how you said it? How did you say it before we started recording this of like they're giving themselves the opportunity to, what did you say? The DoD
Well, I think if you look at the way that they have it written.
Read that side.
In the rule it says, which is on page 43,573. Love their page numbering that they have. Super easy to track on that. But the PDF version that we're looking at, that's the numbering that they have. But it says, given the enterprise-wide implementation of CMMC, DoD developed a 3-year phase rollout strategy. The rollout is intended to minimize both the financial impacts to the industry base, especially small business entities, and disruption to the existing DoD supply chain. Sounds nice. They're the givers.
Yeah.
During the first 3 years of the phase rollout, the CMM requirements will be included only in certain contracts for which the CMMC program officer directs the DoD component program officers to include a CMMC program. So they're saying, and they've kind of been, parroting this, hey, we're gonna cherry pick as we're gonna do a phase rollout. We love you guys, even though you should have been doing this a long time, and we hate the fact that you haven't done it. We're gonna let you do a phase rollout. So they go through and they do this, but then you look at the memo.
Yeah.
Then you look at, I think in page 2, you
at the
have
beginning.
in there.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
So at the beginning where it talks about the major updates, the same section that I was referring to previously, it does talk about the prescription was updated to clarify that unless the requirements at 32 CFR 170 are met until 3 years after the effective date of the rule, the clause will be prescribed for use if program managers and requiring activities make a determination to apply a CMMC requirement to contracts, excluding COTS. Here's
Right,
excluding
COTS.
Yeah.
So what they're basically saying is we have this phased rollout, but if our contract managers do it wrong, we're still right. Right? That's what they're saying.
If the program managers get it wrong, we still got it. Everything's
Right. And
fine.
when I say wrong, they decide to go ahead, usurp their kind of cherry picking methodology.
Prescription.
And they start dropping it on contracts because they feel like it's needed. It's
That's
still
fine.
the right thing to do.
Yeah,
And,
I said it was fine.
yeah. And so they're not going to go behind them and go, oh, flip that back. You did that wrong.
Yeah.
So if they go to head, decide to do that. So what does that mean? That means, do we have absolute clarity about how this rollout is going to go? No.
Yeah.
We don't. We have, guys, we're going to try our best to do it this way, to cherry pick. But if the program managers and those others that are doing it feel that it's necessary to roll that out, they're going to slap it on like butter. And if they do, what kind of recourses do you have to push back? I'm not
none.
sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know. So
I don't think you have a lot of ground to stand on if they're giving themselves this much leeway, which I'm going to be honest with you. They gave the contractors a lot of leeway for, the past few years, 10 years maybe, so I don't think they're trying to be, they like to say wording where it's like trying to be as kind as they can, but I don't think they really want to be that kind anymore. Yeah. And I get it, because we're losing money, we're losing information, and they're sick of it.
They've set it up perfectly to where they can say that they had a cherry-picked methodology, but if they end up not doing it, they still are correct and they didn't say what they said wrong. You know what I mean? So they have perfectly played both sides of the fence.
Yep.
If that doesn't look scary to people that are coming into the space, thinking that they could have still leaned on this for their business practice. But then, Kaleigh, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier. You kind of dropped some tidbits about you've got the primes that have their own agendas that they're going to push. And then you have the total amount of third-party assessments that are going to be required. What was that number?
So for CMMC level 2 certifications, they're estimating small entities that will be required to have that certification as 80,436.
And we're at less than 300 right
now. Yeah, we're much smaller than that of a number.
So in 3 years, and we've been at this now for 6 months, over 6 months for rolling it out, and we're at 300. You know, if you kind of amortize that number over the course of time, it's not looking good for us necessarily hitting the deadline. And just to be clear, the DoD only has a certain amount of visibility to the subs of subs.
Yeah.
So I think that number could easily double or triple.
Yeah.
As far as in those requirements. And if you look at that phased rollout process, I don't see how the DoD can actually accomplish this without being very liberal in their cherry picking and not really rolling it. Because when you only have 300 organizations that are level 2 certified that could really participate in this, and if they don't cherry pick, they're going to have all these contracts that have these requirements, and hardly anybody is going to have the certifications to be able to do it. And that's just math.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to be real careful when they roll out. Does that mean they're still going to? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. It is going to be a crazy year. That is for sure.
I'll have Malia put up on the screen the graph that we're talking about with the percentages and the numbers for the estimates. Before this graph, it does clarify that this is within the 4-year full rollout. This is their estimated number. However, it is likely to change based on component, program, office discretion regarding whether a CMMC status is required, and if so, of what level. So here we go again with but I'm still right if I'm wrong. But I'm still right if I'm wrong, because this could change as well. And I do think it is interesting. Even before this graph shows, it says during the phased implementation period, the estimated number of small entities which the rule will apply to in the first year is 1,104. Okay, so let's clarify, that was just small entities in the first year. Right. And they're thinking, I'm going to go with, my number is, I think 1,104 of them will be in the next. So they start November 10th, 2025 is the beginning of this first year, right? To 2026, November 10th. And that's just small entities. And right now we're about at 300 that have gone in 6 months, but that's not just small entities. That's large too.
Right.
You know? And so I think about these numbers, and exactly what you're saying is right. That number is very terrifying of how we're going to hit
it's coming.
Yeah. And you know, I think if you're an MSP that is listening to this, that has somebody that it is in this area, right? That is a defense contractor, that is a contractor in the DIB or the WIB that has to adhere to this. You need to be vigilant on what might be required of you in a week. Like next week, they're going to come around. They're going to hear something from their prime, or they're going to hear something from their officer that is going to make them lose their minds. And then they're going to come to you and say, can you do this in 2 months? And if you think that they're not crazy enough to say that, I just had a conversation with somebody that asked me to do that. So yes, they are. I've had that conversation
all the time.
And you just know what's coming your way. Mm-hmm.
Those primes are going to want to have as many subs to help them win those contracts.
Yeah.
And they don't have to follow by the same rules of the phased rollout.
Yeah.
That the DoD did.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of what I was like hinting at the beginning of this episode, which is this phased rollout, if you are a subcontractor, might as well just throw this phased rollout into the trash as doo-doo, because you just need to immediately get to work on this, is really the moral of the story, because you have no idea. Well, you should have an idea if you talk with your primes and you get information from them, but you don't know exactly when potentially the prime is going to require it of you, or you're kicked out of their lineup, right? And I even have people that are coming into this space as new businesses that I've talked to, like new contractors that are trying to get into this. And they're like, well, how do I do this as starting off when I don't have even a contract under my belt? And so then they're asking for help from prime contractors, saying like, we can be a sub of yours, a subcontractor of yours, if you can help us out with getting what you need certified. Like, what kind of level do we need? How can we make this work? And I am starting to notice that there are people who are eager, and there are people who are just trying to hide it or throw it in a corner and disregard it. And the contractors and the subcontractors who are eager are going to be like first on the page. They're going to be the first on that prime contractor's call list when they need something, or what they need, and then the others are going to get booted. So I do think that there's this interesting dynamic that I feel like not all contractors have realized, that they might get booted to the back of the list or even off the list fully if they are not prepared for this, because there are some that are very eager, that have already gotten it ready or are almost ready, that are like, okay, prime, use me, we're your subcontractor and we're here and we're ready, and they're going to get a bunch because they're prepared.
And we're already seeing just crazy calls for people that are like, well, we need this requirement. Like, we actually got a call, no joke, for someone asking us if we could do photos. Like, could we go out to a site and they have a photographer and they want us to be there to take the photos, and then we can then hand that data off because we had a level 2, but the photographer didn't. So they just wanted to come in. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're going to start just the fact that you have the level 2 people are just going to start beating on your door.
Even if it's something you don't do.
Yeah. You're like, hey, I need CUI sandwiches. Can you maybe, throw a cafeteria, because I need to run this through your level 2.
It's true. Yeah.
That's a silly thing to say, but my point is be prepared to be surprised with the types of requests you're going to get, because I think in this first year or two, so many people are going to be just trying to figure out a way to get in the market, and only the people with a level 2 have the ability to participate, and they're just going to be throwing all kinds of zany and weird questions just so they can get in line and get involved, because they need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it is I'm glad you brought that up, because it is a very interesting dynamic there that we definitely have not seen fully yet to what is going to occur during the actual active phased rollout. So that's going to be so interesting. I did want to note one more thing before we close this episode, though, is it might just be a small thing, but I am a little bit fearful about some people, some contractors overlooking this, which is in one of the big changes that was listed in the front section that I described earlier, the clause has been updated to include the term affirming official in place of senior company official to match the language of 32 CFR. So if you guys are aware, you have to attest to this every year, right? If you're CMMC level 1, if you're CMMC level 2 self-assessment, and if you're CMMC certified, level 2 certified, you have to attest every year for all of those. And the person that signs off on that attestation is the affirming official. It was first titled the senior company official, and a lot of people liked to note that it was called that because it had to be somebody senior in your company, basically, that was the person that signed off on that SPURS score. But now they've removed that senior company office official name, and it's just an affirming official. And I wanted to note that here specifically because if your company asks you to be the affirming official, you must understand what that means. You are confirming and signing on a dotted line that the SPURS score that you self-assessed and reviewed and are attesting to is correct and is accurate. If that is not correct, your name is on the signature of that. Does that make sense? I think it is very, very important to note that. I am quite fearful of some companies using people so that they don't have, maybe a person kind of knows what that means and uses another person because maybe it's not fully accurate SPURS score, SPRS score that they're putting into the system that they're attesting to and they're affirming that they're doing. And that is a very, very important thing to know what you're signing before you sign it. So just please, if you're in this world, if you have, again, this is anybody, level 1 self-assessment, level 2 self-assessment, level 2 certifications, even level 3, all you losers that are doing it cooler than everybody else. All of you are going to have an affirming official that attests to that score every year. So please just be aware of what you're signing the dotted line to and make sure that it's accurate.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
you don't want to just take that lightly because sometimes we've seen it with potential clients we've worked with. You can see that culture of just get it done. I've given you the responsibility. Just sign. Because we need to get these contracts. Just make it happen. Like, come on. Why is this
just
a problem?
make it happen. Urgent.
Yeah. Just sign whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
That got us where we're at today. I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, Kaleigh, is there anything else you'd like to close us out with? I think that was really a great, very, very high level observations of things that we saw.
Yeah, I want to hear what everybody else has also discovered. By the time this is released, I might have even found a few, other things that I wish I talked about. But this is just, again, our initial discussion of it. Coming from an MSP that is just concerned about their clients and the people that are coming to them asking them for things that are sometimes absurd. Be prepared of what is to come. Be prepared for these 80,436 small entities, potentially, probably more, that are running for the hills these next 4 years, running up the mountain that we've been talking about for 3 years now. Here they all come on their way up.
Yep.
So, yeah. That's it for me.
Brace for impact. It's definitely coming.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this session. Just kind of us briefly covering 48 CFR. I mean, this is both 32 and 48 are almost going to be religious canon that's going to be reviewed for many years to come. Mm-hmm. So this is about as high level as you possibly can get. Summit 7, I'm sure, is going to have some content. There's a few others that I've seen that are releasing it. Mm-hmm. Check those out as well. They all have just different perspectives and things. I highly recommend getting more information. Go and reading over it. Don't just watch videos and think that you can now pair it with the best of them. You do need to go ahead and read it. I think it's really, really critical because it's such an important aspect, because this 48 CFR is how they weaponize it inside the contracts. This is what is going to allow them to be able to slide that in. So it's pretty significant.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for tuning in for another episode. Go ahead, if you're listening on some type of traditional podcast, if it has a rating, give us a good rating. We appreciate it. We spend a lot of time trying to invest our time in there. It would mean a lot to us and in my heart. In my heart and Kaleigh's heart as well. Yeah, just give us a good rating. We appreciate it. It helps other people see this content, which we're trying to get the word out to the masses of especially organizations that are working with MSPs or MSPs yourself and are thinking about getting into this space. Mm-hmm. We just want to get the word out. And then, if you're watching it on video through YouTube or Spotify, just go ahead and hit the reminder, like and subscribe, and that'll help us out as well. So until next time, everybody, keep on climbing.
See ya.
See ya.
Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay up to date on the latest CMMC news. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and listen out for the next one. But until then, keep on climbing.